I've been very prominent in my articles about AI usage, and I've been one of the most extensive, solo dev users out there on Strava. I was actually rank one because I basically maxed out my Cloud Max subscription. But whilst I got quite far, I also didn't get anywhere meaningful. And I kind of like flipped my stance quite drastically at this time because at one point it was almost impossible to keep going on my code base, and I was losing my mind. And then I looked more and deeper into the code because, as we all, we kind of like just accept what AI is doing, and then read into it less and less, especially if it's not critical. But then when I looked into it, like, it was almost impossible to get a clear mental model of what was happening. There were a lot of repetitive types. There was like bad verbose logging, especially, that's one of the biggest problems. And whilst it definitely got me to some certain points, I then had to really dive in into the code base and practically refactor everything. And now you could argue, it might still be faster than coding it, like completely on your own. But after that, obviously, lost a lot of trust in AI generated code, or like in giving, AI the wheel. And I started to code a little bit more into my IDE, which I haven't done for months almost. And I then realized, obviously I didn't change my whole code base yet, or I already deleted 40,000 lines. But when I started building new features, I was like, okay, let me just calm down and think through that. And we all can agree that it's faster to get the mental model of what is happening when you type it out. The IDEs still have assisted coding, but I think what is also very important and not talked about it is, for example, when you want to build a certain feature and you're a little bit lazy about it. So that's why you want to create an abstraction. And sometimes the abstraction is good, and sometimes you can obviously over-engineer, right? We all know about these problems. But just to put the semantics into place. For example, on my code base, I wanted to build a gate that blocked certain recipients if they didn't, if the data wasn't fresh anymore. So I could have told AI to just do it for me, but again, for reasons I just stated, I don't do that at this moment. And then I really tried to do it as good as I can, and I looked into also into the data. So first step was when I looked actually at the data, I realized that I cannot do certain things as I imagine it, because some data just slightly changes and practically not meaningful, so you don't want to block that. And then also some things might be relevant that I didn't think they were. And so I kept doing my research, and I keep going, and then I started building it. And even when I was building it, I didn't want to make just like one Boolean switch in there, but then I needed the semantics of like, okay, this is a gate, this is the category of gates. And then I started having that category of gates. And in the end, I realized, okay, now I have a functionality which is an easy extendable gate function. So whatever gates I'm going to need in the future, as I have done it already on my own, I know now how to implement that. And I could now also let AI know how to implement it properly. And when I think about the business impact, that certain feature, I was not really aware how powerful it could be, has on my business, and I might have missed this critical business decision or coding decision. It makes me very cautious in, loading off the mental load to the AI, because most of the meaningful problems I first have to establish. AI is very good in solving established problems, but I think on the market very often the real problem is not even, people don't know about the real problem, and you have to find the real problem that needs to be solved, and it's not defined at all. You might just oh, the results are not good, and then there's a million things you could do, and then you need to do data research and so on, and you have to basically deduct the results. So my point here is that, and there was a slight adjacent article on Hacker News about that, which was people are losing the craft. And I just want to put the question out there: if obviously running 17 agents and getting it done, a lot of stuff is giving you a lot of dopamine, but while you could tell AI to build a Netflix clone, and it's going to look like a Netflix clone, I'm not sure you're any step closer to actually building a Netflix clone, because to build a Netflix clone you need to even just the software, you need to take care of scalability, the systems design, and a lot of and code style. I mean, it's this is years of development work to get to a point where you can have a platform that works like Netflix. And then even the UI, you need to have all these abstraction layers so you can change the UI easily, or kind of easily, and you can set up systems that can work on scale. So everything you kind of do at this point is almost doesn't matter, right? You're not gonna have inline classes, you're not gonna solve all that stuff in one function, you're gonna have more abstracted down things. So I'm not sure, and that's how very often, right? A lot of time you can get an app done, but then if you want to build an app that is actually, or software that is actually competitive on the market and is actually generating money, there might be a world where AI reduces the likelihood of you achieving that, because you're too far off from the mental model to actually find the big craft solution that will then give you a competitive advantage on the market, that's going to be a software that actually works. Because very often you can get it to a certain point that looks good, that your friends might be impressed, that you might be impressed, but it's not going to be anything that's going to go viral, that people are going to love to use, that people, that not somebody else can do, So I don't want to go into one camp too far, because I've made that mistake in the past. And the more I say one specific thing with certainty, and it might not be as prominent to say it out loud if you don't take a strong position. But I think to make the best judgment, which is something we as developers very much need to do, it's a good thing to not take too much position, because else you're going to see everything through your certain lens. And I understand by making this video, I'm going to be more likely to be in this camp. So I'm going to try as much as I can to keep my eye open on how AI can help me still, and in which cases it can help me. But yeah, to everyone else that thinks they can load everything off to AI, I would recommend to just sometimes ask yourself the questions if actually doing that might put you further away from creating what you actually need to create to get a competitive advantage. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video or if you have any ideas, thoughts on that, leave a comment, thumbs up, the usual stuff. I don't really care too much about it. I want to just get my thoughts out and publish something that is meaningful. So just do what you think is right.